All right. Okay, so um, I didn't talk about the textbook last week, so this is the textbook that we'll be using. The textbook covers quite a lot of stuff, and I will not be going over each and everything that's covered here, and we'll be covering most of it. Okay. Some of it is a little bit more advanced topics I'm not going to cover, but I encourage you to go over the chapters, and I'll be following these chapters pretty closely. Okay. I may skip a little bit here and there, but in general, I'll be following the textbook. Okay, and let's see. So today we're going to begin with chapter 2. So that's our preliminary Python basics. Okay, so here are the learning objectives for this chapter, and once again, right now if I read through it, it may not make a whole lot of sense to you. So we'll come back and review it at the end of the chapter and make sure that we have covered all of these bullet points. And Python is an interpreter language. I talked about this earlier. A full-fledged computer language will be one where you'll write the code and then compile the code into an execution file, exe file, and then you'll run the exe file. Okay. But that's not how interpreters work. Interpreters, you directly run the code. You write the code and run it. Okay. So you don't have to write the entire program. You can write pieces of it. Every line can be run individually. Okay. So that's and there are advantages and disadvantages, but for our purposes, interpreter works really well. Okay. And the only problem here is that since these codes are in cells, you don't have to, and you run the code one cell at a time, so you don't have to run them in sequence. Of course, if you want to start from the top and run the entire file with all the cells right from the top, then you go to cell, and then you can select the type of action that you want. Okay, you can choose run the particular cell, okay, or you can run cells starting from the current cell all the way down, or current cell and all the way up. Okay, well, run a cell and select the cell below. So that's your shift enter and so on, and then run all. Okay, run all is what you will select if you want to start from the top and then just go right through to the end. Okay, but usually we will be using a shortcut and you just run a given cell. Okay, and another important thing that we need to remember is this question mark, and we call it introspection. Okay. In other words, this will give you some help information. So it can be anything. It can be an object that you create yourself in Python, or it can be a function name in Python. It may be a Python feature that you want some more help. So you put a question mark and then the object name. Okay, so here I have set a variable x to the value 2.3, and then I have a question mark and x, and when I run this cell, okay, so it runs the cell, and then it gives you the question mark x gives you this information. So what it says is this x is a floating point scalar. The string form is 2.3, and well, we have the doc string is the functions that are available. Convert a string to a number to a floating point if possible. Okay. So here, since this is an object that we created and it's just a variable equal to a value, you get really nothing much more. But if it is a function, then you'll get a whole lot of information describing what that function is, and we will look at more examples later on. Okay, and then you can exit out. So that's gone. All right. So then Python language basics, language semantics. Okay, so how do you write the code, okay, in a given cell? Python uses white space to structure the code and not braces. So this may not make a whole lot of sense if you have not done any coding before. So in Excel, you think of Excel, you have an if function, you say if, and then you have brackets, right? And the first part is the condition that if will test, and then if the condition is true, what will be the output, and if the condition is not true, what will be the output. Okay, so that's in Excel. In other languages, what you will have is an if, and then the condition will be within brackets, and then you'll have braces, the curly braces, okay, within which you will put what will happen, what should happen if the condition is true, and then you have another set of curly braces in which you indicate what should happen if the condition is not true, and so on. So you will have curly braces that indicates what to do. Okay. But in Python, we don't use any of that. We use white space or indenting. Okay. So if you have an if function, you will see if, a condition, and then a colon. Colon is what indicates that what comes after that is a code chunk, okay, that is related to the first line of code, like an if statement. So that's what a colon denotes, the start of an indented code block. And then you press enter, it will automatically indent for you. Okay. If you have a colon, then you don't indent, you'll have an error message. Okay. Then you can have nested indenting. So if you have one colon, then you enter, and then you put another if function, and another colon, then you'll get one more layer of indenting, and so on. So indenting, so you won't see a lot of extraneous characters floating around. It'll all be indented, so you'll have lots of white space rather than special symbols. So that's why it uses white space, say tabs or spaces, to structure the code and not braces. Okay, so that's one semantic aspect of Python. So within an indented code block, all lines of code must be indented by the same amount till the end. So if the condition is true, like in the if statement, you have a bunch of statements to execute. Then all of them must be indented by the same amount. So once the indenting is over, so you start a line from the starting point, from the first character, so that means the coding block is completed. So a code block is identified by the indentation. Once the indentation is over, so that code block is over, so you get to the next code block. Okay. Then you have pound sign. Pound sign is used to write inline comments. Okay. Usually you will put your descriptive stuff in a markdown cell. The markdown cell is like a Word document, right? So you put all your descriptive stuff in those markdown cells. But sometimes you may want additional information about a particular line of code that you want in a descriptive information, or, for a given line. So if you have some information like that to enter, for you to, as a kind of to remind ourselves what that particular line is doing. So it's a comment. So you can put the pound sign anywhere you want. Okay. Once, of course, the pound sign is used only in a code block. If it is a markdown block, there is no code at all. Everything is just marked out, right? In a code block, if you want to put a comment, then you put a pound sign. So the pound sign can be at the beginning of the line, or you may have a line of code, and then you may have a pound sign. Once a pound sign is entered, anything that comes after that, Python will ignore because it's just a comment for our benefit, not for Python, right? So pound sign is for comment. Any text that comes after the pound sign is ignored, because if you have multiple lines of comments, usually you won't use that. If you have multiple lines of comment, maybe you should put a markdown cell and put that multiple line of comment in the markdown cell. Okay. But if you want to do a multiple line comment, then you have to start and end with 3 quotation marks. It can be a single quote or double quote. So it should be a pair. Okay. All right. So here are examples. So here I have a single line comment. So I have A equal to 8 and a pound sign, and then I have a comment here. Of course, this is not a big deal, but this is how you will enter that. So a pound sign, and set 8 as the value of A. Okay. And then I have A, okay, and a pound sign display the value of A. So if I run that, then I'm going to see what comes after the pound sign are ignored. So this is like first setting A to 8 and then displaying A. Then if you have multi-line, so I have single quotation mark, and then I have 2 lines of comment, then end with 3. Actually, if you type in 3 single quotation mark, Python will automatically enter the ending 3 quotation mark. So you can enter, and then you can and then type in your comment you want. It helps in typing, and you can also have like that. Okay. So now if I run this code, okay, so this is what will be entered in, well, this is how it's stored. The comment is stored in this fashion, where \n, okay, stands for new line. So you have multi-line. So we have new line at the beginning, okay, that one, and then the text multi-line, and then the next line, comment, and then the next line, and so on. So \n is how a new line is saved or stored inside Python. Okay.